Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Jackie Stapleton, and we're so excited to be here and provide this presentation for you. So joining me today is Caitlin Carter and Agnes Zientarsko-Keiko, and I'm just going to jump right in. My slide's moving. Here we go. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. At the University of Waterloo, we respectfully acknowledge that we live, work, and learn on lands of the Haldimand Treaty, an agreement promising the land in perpetuity to the Six Nations of the Grand River, and in territory traditionally cared for by the neutral and Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. So our objectives today is to first, Caitlin's going to provide an overview of our workshop series, the content, the software and technology we use, and some of our evaluation techniques. I'm going to jump into our workshop delivery and statistics, and then Agnes is going to take over with explaining our workshop growth to include separate workshops specifically geared towards environment researchers. And first, an overview of the University of Waterloo, if you're not familiar with us. We're located in Ontario, Canada. We're a comprehensive research university, well known for our STEM programs, but we do also have strong social sciences and arts and humanities programs. We have approximately 35,000 undergraduate students and 7,000 graduate students. We do have a Faculty of Health that contains a School of Public Health Sciences, a Department of Kinesiology, as well as Recreation and Leisure Studies programs. But we don't have a specific medical school or nursing schools, but we do have professional programs related to pharmacy and optometry. So here at the University of Waterloo Library Knowledge Synthesis Support, we offer this support through our liaison librarian teams. So Caitlin and I are on the health and science team. Agnes is a member of the arts and environment team, and we also have an engineering and math team. And we don't have kind of an organized systematic review service. So that's kind of a background of who we are. Okay, and now I'm going to hand it over to Caitlin if you want to get started.
Thanks, Jackie. Good morning, everyone. My name's Caitlin. I'm the librarian for the School of Pharmacy at the University of Waterloo. And how did we start with developing this workshop series? So how did this come to be? So basically, the planning started in fall of 2022 after we noticed an increase in requests for research consultations related to knowledge synthesis, and not just amongst the health librarians. This was starting to become more popular outside of health. And we were also getting more invitations to co-author knowledge synthesis projects as well. So we thought it was time to develop some type of workshop series that could be shared with the campus and could be open to any student, any researcher, faculty member, staff member who'd like to attend, and it became a library department goal. The content was largely based off of our own individual expertise and our time, and we were able to repurpose some of the content that we've used in previous instructions. So you can see the example there on the slide. This is a module I created for a graduate level course at the School of Pharmacy on systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So thankfully, we were able to repurpose some of that content for this new workshop series. We wanted our workshop content to be reusable and open access in nature. So because our colleagues outside of health were starting to get more requests for knowledge synthesis support or advice, we wanted them to have our materials so they could use those in their research consultations. They could share them with students and researchers for independent learning. And we wanted them to be able to use some of the content in their instruction as well if they needed to, with attribution, of course. And then we wanted our workshop series to be modular in nature. So we didn't have an expectation that attendees would have to attend all three workshops that we ended up creating. They could pick and choose which workshops they wanted to attend. And then we also knew we wanted to collect feedback from participants so we could continuously improve the workshop series. Next slide. In the end, we developed three workshops, which were 2 hours each in length, and you can see the topics there. So we included methods, systematic searching, and screening in Covidence. And it was a lot of work. It took us about a year to develop the content and the activities and everything. It went through several variations. And as you can imagine, it's very difficult to condense this type of content into 3 2-hour blocks. So realistically, we could have done a week-long retreat on all of this content, but that just didn't really work with our schedules. We wanted active learning present in each workshop. We wanted that participant engagement. All of our materials are accessible, and we worked with our instructional design team to make sure that our PowerPoints and handouts were all accessible and could be read by screen readers. Our first round of workshops were offered in fall 2023, and these were in person. And then the registration was initially handled via an online web form on our library's website, which was managed by an admin assistant. Next slide. So this is the content that we developed for Workshop 1, and Workshop 1 is taught by me, and this is really focused on a high-level review of the methods. And we chose to focus on systematic and scoping reviews because those are the two review types that we get asked about the most often. So we're going over the differences between those. Then we're moving into a practice exercise where we have the participants create a research question using the PICO framework as well as the PCC framework. And then we go into describing the importance of developing your protocol, what it needs to contain, what is the Prisma P checklist, and how to register your protocol. And then we spend some significant time on how to develop eligibility criteria. So we want our participants to know that this step shouldn't be rushed, and we do spend a good amount of time on that. At the end of the workshop, the hope is that our participants will have a good idea of what type of review they would like to pursue. And then you can see on the slide there on the right-hand side, we have our scenario that we use for the PCC research question exercise. And I'm sharing that with you so you can see what that looks like. So we give them that scenario, we have them break that down into the PCC framework and then create the research question. And then we use this scenario across all 3 workshops. So although the workshops are designed to be modular in nature, this is really the one piece that is connecting across the 3 different workshops. Next slide. Workshop number 2 is systematic searching, and this one here is taught by Jackie. And as you can see, we have a lot of content that we cover in this workshop. And this workshop is not a how-to, it's more of a what to look for, what to consider when you're doing a systematic search for a scoping or systematic review. So Jackie begins with outlining the characteristics of a systematic search. So your database searching, your reference list searching, gray literature searching, if that's applicable. There's an activity on database selection, and then there is information provided on strategies for search term development. So this is where you're brainstorming your keywords, identifying your mesh terms, using search filters, mining those benchmark papers. And then this shifts into how to translate your search across databases. There is a PubMed demo, and then there is a mining benchmark papers demo as well. And then there is an activity on how to use a proximity operator in Scopus so that our registrants can get some exposure to how to use those different search operators. And then the workshop ends with information on documentation. So this is where Jackie shows an example of a published search methods from a paper, and then there's a little bit about gray literature as well. So gray literature could realistically be its own workshop, but we do have a bit about it there. Next slide, please. Our last workshop in the series is focused on screening and Covidence, and this one is taught by our optometry librarian, Bree McConnell, and it does build off the concepts in workshops 1 and 2, but you can definitely just take this workshop alone if you're not interested in workshops 1 and 2. And the content in this workshop is a little bit different than workshops 1 and 2. So the first 2 workshops have PowerPoints and handouts associated with them, but all of the content for workshop 3 is hosted on a LibGuide. So that is linked there on the slide deck that you'll have access to, so you can go take a look at that. And when Bree delivers this workshop, she uses a split screen approach, which has been extremely effective. So on one side of the screen, she has the LibGuide loaded, where she's working through the different steps of the workshop. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, she has Covidence. So you can watch her work through both things at the same time. You're not switching screens. And she also has enhanced the size of the cursor as well as the color. So even if you don't have low vision, it has been very effective for folks following along. And you can see the outline of this workshop on the left-hand side. So it's really just how to set up the review in Covidence and how to import your results from the different databases, and then how to set up your screening, how to use Zotero to bring in a batch upload of full text articles, and then there's a bit about data extraction as well. So Bree does have a template for data extraction on that LibGuide, and you can have a look at that. And then there's a bit about exporting your results, so exporting the Prisma diagram as well as your inter-rater reliability. Next slide. So the technology that we use in this workshop really centers around these three tools. We are using LibGuides to host our content, and then we have an institutional subscription to Vivox at U Waterloo. So that is an audience response system, and it has a pretty low learning curve. You can use it to set up different types of questions. There's multiple choice, true or false, matching, click on target, word answer, that type of stuff. And then we use Google Docs for some of the activities as well. All of our materials are also stored on an internal OneDrive folder amongst the team members. And then you can see an example of a Vivox question there on the slide. So the nice thing about Vivox is it integrates into PowerPoint. So I'm able to run the Vivox questions from within the presentation. And just a word of caution, if you do use Vivox, and if you haven't used it before, if you decide to use the word cloud option, there is a 20 character limit. And that caught me. I used the word cloud question in the beginning, and then one of the attendees put on our evaluation form that it cut them off and they weren't able to fill in their full answer. So I had to switch those questions all over to a text-based question option. And then on the right-hand side there, you can see the activity we use for developing eligibility criteria, and that's all done via a Google Doc. So we have our attendees collaborate on that together. And that activity was inspired by a webinar I went to by Patricia Ayala, and this was a very similar activity that she ran in that workshop. So we have modified that for our purposes here. Next slide. And then the evaluation form, we created that in MS Forms, and you can see it's very brief here. It's just 6 questions. And we send that out after each session. And on average, we get about 5 to 15 responses. So the response rate is low, but I do find that the feedback we receive is pretty thoughtful, and it has been helpful in creating future versions of our workshop content. Next slide. I'll turn it back over to Jackie.
All right. All right. Thanks, Caitlin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our workshop delivery. So we certainly realize quickly it takes a team to deliver a workshop series like this. So as Caitlin mentioned, the team started with kind of 3 lead instructors, and we each took on the development and delivery of one of the workshops. But each workshop will have 2 instructors with it. So we support each other with that, but we've also been able to include other participants in the library who are interested, say, in starting to provide instruction or interested in learning more about knowledge synthesis. So we've had library associates co-instruct with us, as well as MLIS co-op students or Masters of Library Science co-op students as well. So it's been a good opportunity to kind of expand the people involved. So Caitlin mentioned that we started off with a kind of a manual registration system, which was not great. But last year we moved to the LibCal SpringShare software, and that's been wonderful. And a library associate has kind of taken on that process. You can see Amy Lynn's photo right there. She's been wonderful. So that manages our event listings on our library website, as well as all of the registration. And finally, we have a communications team. So the communications team handles our social media, news announcements. So that's been wonderful. And then as well, the different liaison librarians would forward, hopefully, the uh, new listings and new workshops information to their departments directly. So when we first started offering the workshop, we did it in person. You've got a lovely photo here of our wonderful library instruction space. So, but you are limited in that room, so we would have to cap the participants at around 15 to 24, depending on which room we were using. Um, but you can never get away with tech problems, even when it's in person. Poor Bree, for one of her first workshops, the internet just went down across campus. And so you really have no control over that. Um, and then we moved to a virtual offering. So our virtual workshops are offered through MS Teams. It's the software most used on our campus. And I wanted to highlight here that we've chosen not to record the presentations, although we do get requests from that for people who can't make the dates and times, or sometimes from participants who want something to refer to. But in those situations, we do have the LibGuide that hosts our slides and handouts. So that's where we would refer someone who's asking for recording. And as well as a heads up for anyone doing virtual workshops, if you're not doing them already, AI bots are certainly an issue that's popping up more and more often, who they join the chat and start a recording of the session without us knowing. So we have to be vigilant. And that person who's monitoring the chat can uninvite the AI bot. On our campus, it's actually against policy. Campus-wide IT does not want AI bots recording our presentations and workshops. And finally, we've mentioned the LibGuide several times, so it's where we're hosting our workshop materials. And it's really been turned into kind of a key support tool for both the workshop series, but really for any of the librarians who are offering research consultations through our library. They regularly refer researchers to this site to get background information or instructional information on how to do these types of knowledge synthesis. I know that for my research consultations, if someone is new to performing a systematic or scoping review, I will often ask them to review these materials before we even meet. So I know they've got kind of a level playing field. As well on the for these PowerPoints that we have here, note that we do have a Creative Commons license on them. So certainly anyone who manages to find our website is available to use these workshops and PowerPoints with appropriate attribution. And we certainly have had requests from faculty and other librarians, other institutions, and to ask permission for those. So that Creative Commons license is there. So what's our attendance been like? So we've been pleased with the attendance. There's certainly a growing interest in these review methods across campus and across disciplines. And as we started offering more virtual, our attendance greatly increased. And so at this point now, we've just decided to offer virtual offerings, really just as a workload issue for us, but also it's been the method that's been most preferred by our researchers. And attending the workshops are primarily graduate students, but attendees also include undergraduates, faculty, staff, other researchers. But we are at this point limiting to the University of Waterloo researchers only. And the highest representation is from our health-related programs, but that's followed by environment, engineering, social sciences, and really any program on campus you can say has probably attended one of our workshops. So word is getting around, but I'm sure everyone here acknowledges or realizes that these reviews are becoming much more popular. So I've just pulled a few comments that we received from our feedback to highlight some of the key issues that we've been experiencing. So certainly the Google Doc activities and the VBOX questions have been popular. Of course, people want more and more types of education. So we've been receiving suggestions on splitting into offering two different workshops on systematic versus scoping reviews. We got a suggestion for a full day intensive workshop for PhD students. So yes, definitely lots of interest. And kind of key lessons learned. Virtual delivery is reaching a wider range of participants. The presentation materials are very useful to have kind of a host site that we can refer people to. And certainly offering a workshop tends to increase the interest in knowledge of our expertise. So we've gotten co-authorship opportunities from researchers who attended the workshop. And as well, offering a workshop just increases the number of consultations now that people are aware of the complexity of it. Inevitably, it ends up with follow-up research consultations from those people who attend. So we are certainly balancing our workload and providing this knowledge synthesis support, but certainly it's improving as well as more librarians in our library gain experience in KS. Okay, and now I'm going to hand it over to Agnes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Agnes Zientarska-Kajko, and I was invited to co-present with Jackie and Caitlin because Jackie and I are collaborating with the presenting and delivering the workshop for students in Faculty of Environment. So over the past few years, we observed a growing interest in scoping and systematic reviews among graduate students in Faculty of Environment. An increasing number of researchers were seeking to apply evidence-based systematic review methodologies within their own fields. And many students, as Jackie and Caitlin mentioned, attended the first instances of the series of workshops they presented. And so Jackie and we thought that maybe it's time to create a special focused on environmental sciences workshop for Faculty of Environment. So we piloted a version of this workshop we offered it to graduate students from the School of Environment, Enterprise and Development. This is one of the multiple graduate programs within the Faculty of Environment, because we wanted to assess the interest and also use that pilot workshop as a to test the content, the timing. And we were positively surprised and really happy that when we advertised this workshop, it generated significant interest and confirmed that there is a demand for that kind of a session. And based on participants' feedback and our own observations, we made minor adjustments. For example, we lengthened the session to 2 hours from 1.5 hours. And now we offer this kind of workshop once a term in the fall and winter terms, and to a broader audience, not only Faculty of Environment students, but also other students attend. And I'm going to touch about that later. Next slide, please. Okay, so the workshop for environmental sciences is geared toward, like I mentioned, geared towards graduate students interested in conducting a systematic reviews for thesis, coursework, or publication. It is a condensed version of the 2 workshops described by Caitlin and taught by Caitlin and Jackie. The workshop introduces systematic review methods and search strategy development through a combination of presentation and interactive activities. The goal of the is that the participants would learn how to define what a systematic review is and distinguish it from the traditional literature review. Identify the key characteristics of a systematic, transparent, and reproducible search process, and develop strategies to build, organize, and refine a comprehensive search strategy across academic databases. The workshop incorporates discipline-specific examples for the environmental sciences and highlights established approaches such as those from Collaboration for Environmental Evidence and the Campbell collaboration. Next slide, please. So this is the highlight, basically what we teach in the 2 hours. The workshop is split into 2 parts. The first part is taught by Jackie and the second by me. And I'm not going to spend much time on the what we cover, as you can see on the slide, because I have a few slides more and I'm pressed for time. I see it's only 5 minutes left. Okay, so similarly to what how we advertise the 3 series workshops, we use communication. We collaborate with communication team to increase the awareness of the new workshop, and so we work with the team to implement communications plan, including social media, campus partners, students organization, academic departments, and more. So basically, communications team reach out through all these means to try to capture the audience and advertise the workshop. But we also, because of the type of relationship I have with the Faculty of Environment, I have access to their listservs, graduate students listservs and faculty listservs. I was able to promote this workshop through those, and many students, that's how they actually, they confirmed that's how they learned about the workshop, and they were happy to attend. We also other librarians who heard about the upcoming workshop, which was geared to non-health specific program graduate students and researchers. They also shared the news about it with their circles, and so we were able to get participants from other programs. Okay, next slide, please. A little bit about attendance. So registration is always higher than the actual attendance, and I have just one number to give an example. So for example, the fall 2025, 45 people attended, meantime 71 were registered. So this is a reoccurring theme that more people are planning to come and for various reasons are not able to attend. Again, we get requests for recordings, but we do not record. Next slide, please. So quickly, lessons learned. We noticed that there is a higher interest from researchers when the discipline-specific workshop is offered. And we also noticed that offering this workshop strengthened our relationships between liaison librarians and researchers. Professors who attended the workshop subsequently invited librarians to teach their students, which resulted in building better relationships between librarians and researchers. And one example of this, it was geography prof who led the group of researchers from different organizations, not only University of Waterloo, it's a partnership, and invited us to teach this workshop specifically to their researchers and students. That's all for my slides. Thank you. Caitlin will, if there's a minute.
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention our next steps. So we're prepping for our next round for fall, and we're adding Agnes's content to our LibGuide so that'll all be integrated into one place. And then we're working on a fourth workshop to add to the series on AI and knowledge synthesis because we are starting to get a lot of questions related to how artificial intelligence supports or hinders the knowledge synthesis process. Next slide is just our contact information. If you have questions after, you can always reach out. Thank you.